students, welcome to your first class. In today's class, we shall be discussing the poem Where the Mind is Without Fear, written by Rabindranath Tagore. So before I give you the oral orientation of the poem, let me tell you a little about the vocabulary of the poem that has been used in it. So let's go to the other page and look at it. So in it you would have some of these meanings. As you can see, narrow domestic walls. What does that mean? It means the divisions that we have created in our country and within the societies. That's what it means, because that makes you narrow. Also, we would see that what's the meaning of dreary, which is dull, lifeless things which do not have life. I shall be explaining all these in when I read the poem with you all. And then you have dead habit, which means this is an image that the poet is using of clear water that is running through desert. And obviously, desert needs water, and when water runs through a desert, it'll automatically be lost. So the real meaning behind it is the ability to think clearly, and you shouldn't destroy your thinking ability, and the meaningless traditions, which he refers as dead habit. And by thee is an old English which means you, and here it refers to God. Now you see, this poem, as you see here, Where the Mind is Without Fear, is a thought-provoking poem by Rabindranath Tagore. What is thought-provoking? Thought-provoking here means this poem will make you think. As you know that Rabindranath Tagore is an Indian writer. He's a poet, dramatist, and he's often known as the Bard of Bengal. Bard, B-A-R-D, okay, that means poet of Bengal. Now, it's one of the best poems in his anthology called Geetanjali, which was published in the year 1912, for which he won the Nobel Prize in Literature in the following year, that is 1913. You see, when Tagore composed this poem, his mind was confined by the chains of slavery like any other common citizen of India, because India was under the clutch of British rule at that time, and we all were dreaming about freedom. So this poem is written in the form of a prayer to God, the true bearer of freedom, and he urges God throughout the poem with his mysterious concept of freedom from the struggle for awakening of his countrymen. So let's look at the poem, and what it means. When I finish reading the poem, I shall give you a quick summary, which will be quite beneficial for you to understand the poem. So let's see, what is the prayer in here? The first line begins with, where the mind is without fear and head is held high. So Tagore is actually taking us to a world where we don't have any fear in our mind, because at that time, when this poem was written, almost around the beginning of 20th century, we all were under the domination of European power. So he was dreaming of a world where men do not have fear, and where our head is held high, means where we can live with dignity without any sort of oppression, or without any kind of fear in our mind. And also in the second line he says, where knowledge is free. So he's dreaming of a land where knowledge is free, which means you can pursue education, where knowledge is everything, where there is no obstacle in your way to when you want to learn something. Then if you follow the third line, that would say something like this, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls. This means that he's imagining a world where we don't have narrow domestic walls, means narrow-mindedness that we have in our country among the people, also among the people of our society. So he's dreaming of a society where everyone is treated equally, where equality prevails, where fraternity prevails, where brotherhood prevails. So that's what he is saying, where the world has not broken up, because our world right now, if you see your society, it's broken up. We have problem in every culture, every religion. So Tagore is kind of imagining a world where we are not broken up into fragments, means small pieces, with our domestic barriers, which means the social barriers that we have. So he's imagining a world where we do not have such barriers, and we're living peacefully. Then if you look at the other line here, which says, where word comes from the depth of truth, it means where nobody lies, where truth prevails everywhere. In today's world, we see people lying every other day, every other minute. every other second, I would say. So he's imagining a world where, the main foundation of human being should be based on truth. That's what he's imagining in this line. And then where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection. So if you go to the next page, you'll find out the meaning of what this line has to convey you. This means we need to strive together towards a common goal. Means we need to be we need to be enthusiastic towards the goal, and we need to work together, forgetting our problems that we have in the society, like caste problem or any other problem that we have. We need to forget about all those, and we need to work towards the perfection, to make the society working, to make our family working, to make our country working. Then he says, if you look at the other line here, he says, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit. What does he want to say in these lines? He's saying clear stream of reason. Man has the ability to reason. If I give you two apples, one is rotten and one is good, you can reason the apples and you would definitely choose the right one. You would not choose the rotten one. So he's saying that where the clear stream of reason has not lost, means he's imagining a society where man has not lost reasoning. You see all these felonies happening in our societies, all these criminal activities that we see in our societies, these happen mainly because of lack of reasoning among men, among humans living in our society. So he's imagining a world where people will not have lost the sense of reasoning. And then he creates an image. He says it's way into dreary desert and of dead habit. By dead habit he means, archaeological, cultural practices that we have as humans, like what our ancestors did. We have to do the same thing, and as part of that we make the young generation suffer a lot. So that's what he is saying. He's saying we need to get rid of dead habits that no longer are applicable to this modern world. We need to get rid of those. And also he says, it's way into the dreary desert. We should not lose our reasoning like water gets lost in the desert, because desert is very thirsty for water. So he creates an image of that, like water flowing through desert and how it's diminishing, how it's fading from them. And then he says you should also get rid of dead habits and instill new habits. That's what he is trying to say here. Then if you look at the other line, where the mind is led forward by thee. Now he's talking about God. He's saying where the mind is led forward by thee means where you as creator, God, okay, where you are the creator and you are the I would say pioneer. So we look at you and where you are guiding all of us. We want to be under you, under your guidance. That's what he is meaning here. Into ever widening thought and action, which means where thought is wide, means where people's minds are not narrow, it's wide enough. And where action is important, where people are doing big actions. And here actions mean good deeds in the society. And then he says into that haven of freedom. So it's requesting God to take us into that heaven of freedom where everybody has all these things that he had mentioned in the poem. And then he says, oh, my Father, which means God, let my country awake. Please make the people of our country awake. Let them get out of their sleep and understand what's wrong. And with that, he finishes the poem. So if I summarize a little bit, if I read it from the top, you will see that he imagines, in the first line, he imagines a world where he says there is no fear among men, and he says where we all can keep our heads high, which means we all can live with respect. And also he says in that society knowledge will be free. No one will restrict no one from pertaining knowledge. Also he says he's imagining a society where there are no caste problems, means fragments, where there are no narrow domestic thinking among men. So he is praying for a world like that. Also he says we need a society where everybody speaks the truth, holds on to truth, just how Mahatma Gandhi propagated all those things in his teachings, which you will definitely get in the upcoming years in class 9 and 10. Then he says where everyone altogether, stretches their arms towards perfection, where everybody, works for one common goal towards perfection. Everybody wants to become perfect. Nobody is going towards criminal activities or felony. And then he says, where reasoning is not lost among men, then he creates the imaginary image of the desert, as I said, water going through the desert. And then he also asks us to get rid of our dead habits. Then he says, where our mind is totally, guided by you, we want to live there. And then he says, where our mind is wide open, where we are doing good actions. And then he says, please take us to that haven, oh my Father. He means dear God. And then the last few words, he requests God to let the people of our country awake to understand this greatness. Now I would take you through the summary, as I have already said. So I've prepared one summary for you. Let's look at that. You can take a screenshot of that while you are watching this video. You can see where the mind is without fear is a pre-independent poem. Means it was written long before we got independence, and in which the poet sincerely urges, which means he requests to God to awake his fellow beings, means us, we, all of us, for the realization that the essential need to live in a free and united country. So he requests God to give us that understanding of a united country, because at that time everyone was fighting. We're talking about in the first half of 20th century. So we're talking about that. He wants his countrymen to awake and enjoy the life of full dignity and honor. That's what also he is asking his countrymen to awake and to enjoy a life of respect and honor. His countrymen would not be superstitious or believers of blind faith. Rather, they would lead the life of enlightened and educated. So this is also his requesting, is asking God to give us this wisdom, where we do not believe in superstitions, Purane Khayalat, and all these traditional thoughts, or we believe in blind faith. So we go towards science, we enlighten our mind, and we get educated. He wishes the people to be honest, he wishes them to be open-minded, and he wishes them to be industrious, which means hardworking. And then and he says, then only they would stretch their arms towards perfection, means they all can come in the same picture and go towards perfection, and the nation can actually achieve the apex of success, means the nation can actually have success after that. Then he says they need to use their reasons over their blind faiths. So that line, do you remember we read that line where he talks about reasons, where his reasons are not lost? So here he requests the people, requests God actually, to give people the ability to reason so that they can overcome blind faith, and they should be ready to accept new thoughts and ideas. That's a challenge, because when you go towards modernization, people must accept new thoughts, new ideas. He requests God to free his countrymen, from manipulation, all sort of manipulation, corruption, and slavery. He yearns for a awakened country where there would be freedom of mind and expression of ideas, and everything that our constitution says. The poem also, invokes the deep patriotic feelings among us. It says our country is subjugated by caste, creed, superstitious beliefs, and biased ideas, which means our country is downgraded with ideas of segregation, like caste system, creed system, superstitions. We believe in unwanted things, unscientific things, and we have different beliefs where someone is worshipping a picture, where someone is worshipping a stone. So we need to get out of these ideas and look forward to a modern society. That's what he prays to God. Tagore also honestly appeals to God that a country would be where people's head is high and knowledge is free. As I said, where all will be respected and knowledge will be given for free. He also says his country wouldn't be divided and fragmented into pieces due to their narrow thoughts. People will not have narrow thoughts, and when people don't have narrow thoughts, our country will not be divided. It will not be broken into pieces. They should express their words not from the mind but from the depth of truth and heart. He also urges us that our people should speak the truth and speak from our heart. Lastly, in a few paragraphs, he says he requests God to guide his countrymen for moral awakening, to fight for their rights against the British inhuman rules, because it was written in the first decade of 20th century, and he requests the people to liberate them from the fear of oppression, repression and subjugation. Unless you kill your fear, you cannot fight against what is coming. And then he says, unshakable chain of fear, and direct them to the path of progress and prosperity. That's what he requests God through his prayer. This poem is actually a prayer, and this is no ordinary poem, because this has gotten Nobel Prize, and it is a poem from his collection of poems, which is known as Geetanjali. So we should keep that in mind. They should be confident and not confined. He says people should be very confident. People shouldn't be confined with narrow-mindedness and other problems of our society that most of us are into. So we need to get out of all these things. He said there wouldn't be injustice and inequality in the country on the basis of caste, creed and gender. People shouldn't be fighting for caste, creed or gender. That's what he also requests, and he showed in this poem. Countrymen should be unprejudiced and open-minded, accepting new challenges and changes. We should change. We should accept the changes. That's one of the biggest problems. Sometimes we fear the things that we don't understand. They should lead their lives of decency and dignity. Now, finally, to conclude, this poem, Where the Mind is Without Fear, is a poem in which Tagore reveals his personal quest for divine and characterized by a variety of original themes, both in thought and expression. Therefore, it is a remarkable poem to a great extent, which expresses the intensity of feeling of freedom. And his poem is universal in its appeal and envisions the haven of freedom and happier future for mankind. So, yes, this poem is a very beautiful poem. This is a summary that I read. And if you don't want to watch this part, you can watch the other part and concentrate on the questions provided by your teacher. Alright, bye-bye for now. I'll see you with the next explanation.